But I want to thank you so much for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about how advanced capture is the key to automating the accounts payable process. My name is Glenn Evans. I'm the Director of Strategic Sales here at Informa Software, and I'm joined by my colleague Rick Wheeler. Rick's got a few more years in the business, so I'm a little bit older than he is, but Rick, I'll give you a chance to say hello. All right. You know, I muted everybody. I muted Rick as well. Go ahead, Rick.
Clint, I appreciate the opportunity to give you guys a presentation. I had whatever I was going to say, I had it in perfect cadence, and then Glenn cut me off, so now I'm off for the whole demo, I guess. So go ahead, Glenn.
All right. Well, Rick's Director of BPM Solutions here at Informa Software, and together the two of us work with the team that we work with a lot of folks trying to help automate accounts payable and invoice processing. You know, the advanced capture portion of this is really one of the keys to starting the whole process. So that's what today's presentation will be about. Like I said, our goal is to be finished at the bottom of the hour, and I'm going to share a few slides to kind of go all on the same page and share the concepts. And then when I finish that about midway through, Rick's going to come in and it's going to have actually the much more interesting part of our presentation. We're going to do a live software demo, and I want to thank the three of you who sent in some sample invoices. We had folks send in some invoices just a few minutes ago that we've never seen before, and Rick's going to use those invoices as an opportunity to show you how intelligent the system is and how it can pick up documents that you've never seen before. So, but again, that's part of what will be exciting in just a few minutes. So goals for today. One, understand what advanced capture is. So I want to give you a good definition, make sure we're all on the same page of understanding what it is. Understand how it automates your accounts payable process. What is the role that it plays, and you know, why is it essential if you're really going to move toward a full automated system? And thirdly, we hope by the end of this you'll have a vision for how advanced capture can benefit your organization. And definitely when we get through this, we're going to entertain as many questions as you guys may have and stay here as long as you would like to kind of dig into all the details about this. But when we look at the definition, advanced capture uses the most advanced document and character recognition capabilities available to turn documents into machine-readable information. Basically, it may be a piece of paper that comes into your office that you need to scan into digital form. It could be an email that someone sends in with a PDF or a TIFF image of a invoice. It could be a document that someone uploads to a portal. Any of those ways could be what makes the difference, but it's bringing this in and making it machine readable. It captures the data stored in the scan image in faxes and interprets it. Use a combination of optical character recognition, which is reading machine print, intelligent character recognition, which is reading human handwriting, IDR is intelligent document recognition, adaptive reading, which is where some of that artificial intelligence comes in, and a combination of other technologies. Again, Rick's going to get into some of these details a little bit more as he talks about the details of this, but it brings all these things to bring the data out of the document. And of course, the whole goal is to reduce manual keying, paper handling, to accelerate your business process. It's going to feed into these workflows and approval processes, and it improves the data quality. And of course, I believe we all understand the bottom line is to save time and money. Now, when we look at some of the features of advanced capture, there's basically, we're talking about automatic classification. When a document comes in, it's going to have the ability to look at a group of documents and say, okay, this is an invoice, this is a credit memo, this is a piece of correspondence, whatever it may be. And of course, that's for the invoice process. You know, to be honest with you, advanced capture is used in many different kinds of things. It's used in, you know, HR onboarding. It's used in insurance claims. Just about any type of process where you've got variable documents coming in, but they have consistent data throughout, that's where you see advanced capture coming in, automatically read these documents and pull the data off of them. Well, again, that's where we come to an automatic data extraction. It's going to be able to read, for example, an invoice, and on two different invoices, the invoice date may be in completely different locations, but it's going to be able to detect that and pull the data out. The invoice number, again, in different locations. The total in different locations, so it's going to be able to bring that. And, of course, the seamless migration to a third-party system, both the data and the documents, being able to bring the data into your ERP, whether it's Microsoft Dynamics, AX, Oracle, loss, and you name it, to bring the data in that system and be able to also manage the images of these documents, because we know it's important to keep these things and be able to manage that for any audits to come up. Now, let's look at a little diagram of this. This is kind of like the big 20,000-foot view, if you will. Basically, we're talking about invoices are coming into your system. Could be paper that's being scanned, uploaded to a folder. You may have different offices using different network multifunction devices, and they're scanning and saving it to folders. It could be one or more folders. The folders can have meaning because maybe each one is associated with a different office or a different department. Documents can be coming in from mobile devices. And, of course, this system can automatically pull in the attached documents from an email. So the documents are coming into the system. And, by the way, it's good to mention at this point that we also can work with EDI, and we can actually put it through the same rules. Of course, the EDI doesn't need to have an advanced capture process. We're able to integrate that in so the same data validations and then all the workflow routing can be applied to that if it's necessary for those particular transactions as well. So the documents come in, and then they go into the advanced capture. It's also called IDR, Intelligent Document Recognition. And basically, it's going to go back and classify the document, what kind of document this is, be able to separate the documents out, classification, recognition, separation, and then data extraction. And it's able to go back and do data validations. For example, it can say, okay, this is who the vendor. Does this vendor match my vendor table? And it can tell you, well, gosh, we don't know this vendor, so I'm going to create an exception because we're seeing something we don't recognize. Or it can match and say, I want to match the vendor. And if it's a PO-based invoice, it can match the PO. If it has line items, it can do PO line item matching. It can do all of this automatically. And, of course, integrating with one of your back-end ERP system is, if it is important to know the department, it can go back and look at the data, either the database or the data that's on the invoice, and it can do a department recognition. And then, of course, if everything matches in the purchase order line item, everything matches to what's expected, and there's no further approval needed, then it can do what's called straight-through processing. That invoice can run straight through the system. Say it was emailed into your system. It was extracted from the email box. It was run through the advanced capture system. Everything matched. Now it's created, put all the way back in for a voucher creation in your ERP, and no one had to touch that invoice. That's called straight-through processing. Other people call it touchless processing. So you're capable of doing this, and we've got some folks having 80, even in certain cases as much as 90% of their invoices are able to flow straight through. And, of course, that greatly increases your business throughput, greatly decreases the time it takes to process your invoices, and reduces the need for humans to be involved. Now, if there's a need to go in workflow, it can detect the different things going on, and it can send it to the appropriate staff member. It can even be a variable workflow based upon how it's reading what's on the form. Let's say that you've got a rule that anything below $5,000, the first line manager can approve it. So then the person could see this, they could approve the invoice, and it goes straight into the back-end system for voucher creation and data export. But, of course, they could also disapprove it, and that'd be an option. And, of course, you can build a system so it has rules. For example, over $5,000, a manager needs to see it, and then the manager can make a decision. And you can have variable rules, so these departments would have these set amounts, another department would be another amount, and, of course, it could be over $25,000, the CFO needs to see it. You know, multi-levels as it fits. And, of course, the things that are rejected can be dealt with as exceptions. Maybe we're not seeing that vendor, so it can create a workflow that it would go to the proper person to say, oh, we have a new vendor, or wait, we're getting an invoice from someone that we don't do business with. So what do we want to do about that? Again, the advanced capture is the key because it's able to read these invoices, see if it's a PO or non-PO. If it is a PO, match it up, send it through straight through processing, or detect that something's not quite right, send it to the appropriate person, but also it sees that workflow. So any kind of approvals you need to do, especially for those non-PO invoices, it can send it through to the people that need to manage this and, of course, manage those exceptions. And the nice thing about this is at the back end, of course, if you have electronic payments, which we always recommend, that can run straight through, and it could automatically pay it, or maybe you want to wait and let somebody look and then do the final submission themselves. It's all in your conference. But then whatever payment was made, it can feed that data back. And then you've got an underlying system where as soon as advanced capture is finished, all the documents are available to search. So now all the straight-through processing, everything that was done, even the payment is now available. So you have a complete record of the history of this invoice from the time it came in to the time it was paid. And, of course, those things can be integrated into your ERP system so you can access those images straight within the system. So this is where the advanced capture comes in, because it's what allows the straight-through processing and collects the intelligence to feed it into your workflow to make it flow more smoothly and be much more efficient. So again, what we're going to focus on is this intelligent document recognition, or also called advanced capture process. All right, and what we're going to do right now is we're going to go ahead and move to the software demo portion. So Rick, I'm going to go ahead and pass the ball over to you and make you the presenter. All right. And Rick, I think you've got a couple more slides that are going to dig into some of the details of the advanced capture yourself, right?
So, thanks, Glenn. We'll try to, my goal for this portion is to add a little bit of color to what Glenn said and just talk a little bit about the back-end technology. I think it's important to understand how this software works, because then it begins to open up the possibilities of what is possible or what's capable of doing. So basically what we're talking about is an advanced capture system that's based on OCR, as Glenn described. And the first step is the step of import, which is basically getting documents into the system. So in terms of import, we're able to get documents from any source. It could be from a dedicated scanning station that we provide as part of the solution. It could be monitoring just a network folder or an FTP site. So really anywhere that you have documents coming from, any system that's housing documents, even from a receipt perspective, so an email box or a fax inbox, we can monitor and bring documents, in this case specifically invoices in for direct processing. The next step is recognition, and really this is where all the heavy lifting happens, and the engine is capable of structured documents, which are basically forms you think about with the normal boxes, government forms where things are always in the same place, in the same location very easily. Also, we can handle very easily the semi-structured documents, which an example is just a perfect example. An invoice, I should say, is a perfect example of that, or a purchase order, where we always have the same information, but it's laid out differently. And we even have success reading unstructured documents like college transcripts and insurance claims forms. So a lot of different things you can do with the engines. So the first step is separating documents. Basically, you're able to drop the documents in and scan them all together, and we can begin figuring out what they are. A document classification is applied to the document based on the layout. The primary goal is to extract the information based on the legibility, the capability of getting the information off using OCR and ICR technologies, and then transform that information into something that we can then push into a back-end system. So for document separation, we can do that based on standard layout, if you will. So if we detect that there's always a cover letter followed by other forms, we could set that up. Barcodes can be used for separation. Even contextual separation can be done with some of the adaptive learning technologies, where we can read the content of a document and determine if that's a new starting point. After the documents are separated, then they are classified into the different types of documents that they are. This is a very important step, because not only will it determine how we're going to extract the information, but also kind of how the workflow is going to go from this point forward. And we're able to customize all of those points. So the classification is going to happen based on a couple of different methodologies. One is rules, where we basically are setting up some rules or scripts that define what to look for on the document. We can also do, as I mentioned, the adaptive learning, which is based on feeding the system samples, or just feeding the system the sample forms. And that's basically how we're going to do that. And I won't go through every point here on this eye chart, but it's basically just intended to show that we can handle pretty much any recognition methodology, whether it's cleaning up the image, recognizing patterns for barcodes, obviously doing the OCR, and then again how the rules system works. So I think Glenn already covered this in one of his slides. So just as an example, what we're doing once we have run that document through the OCR process, what we're doing is looking for certain words. So in the case of a shipping order, it might be the clerk who shipped it. In the case of an invoice, it might be an invoice number or an invoice date. From finding that word, then we look into a location nearby to extract the information that's related to that. Extracting the information then with the OCR engines and turning it into something that is usable and then running that through additional validation points. So at any step of this process, we can have user intervention or not. As Glenn has mentioned, our goal is to get as much straight-through processing as possible. And when we talk about the 80–90%, it really is not about the invoices going through or the documents going through. It's the reduction in the overall effort. So a lot of things are going to go through automatically. A lot of things are going to require a very simple touch, which I'll show you as we get into the demo. So again, just another example of an invoice where we're looking for the keywords and then finding that information, even line item detail, which we'll show you how that works. Validation, this is simply in the case that something is wrong. If the system has a low confidence in itself from the optical character recognition, it just says, I don't feel good about this string of information meaning what you think it's going to mean. Well, let me tell a human being that they need to take a look at that. So this is going to be good for unknown information. Maybe the first time you're seeing this particular format coming through, you want to have a human being verify it. Or simply if you have an image maybe that's come through with a thumbprint and the OCR capabilities just aren't that great. So the validation client also uses all the tools imaginable to make sure that the human eye is attracted and we're reducing the amount of effort that's going on. So whether it's correcting a document separation, saying this page actually belongs with this former document, or modifying the data, everything is just a simple point-and-click operation. Visual cues are always given to tell you what needs to happen next. So it's a very fluid process that is also facilitated by this concept that we know as single-click entry. This is one of the easy ways you can fill in the information. Basically, we're highlighted in this field. We click in this area, then the information within that field is going to be populated from the document, which has been extracted with OCR, directly into the database. Obviously, we can fully automate this process, and that's facilitated through very easy training, whereby you basically train the document one time, and then every time forward it sees that document, it's going to automatically recognize what that document is and extract the information from it. So in terms of export, Glenn pretty much already covered this. The idea with the advanced capture tool is it's designed to very intelligently extract and validate information and then kick it off to a source for a workflow. So let me just give me a second to change screens here, and I'm just going on to my demo system where we're going to put a few invoices through the pace. So the first thing that I'll show you is just a pretty straight-through demo that I use a lot of the times to explain the technology. What I'm going to do is I am going to kick off a new batch of invoices being scanned. And again, keep in mind that in terms of putting documents into the system, whether it's invoices or correspondence or whatever it might be, what I'm going to do is simply copy and paste some things into a folder, and it's going to kick it off and run. The same process would be in place on an automated basis to monitor folders, to monitor email accounts, to monitor FTP sites, possibly. So basically that process is going to be a continual process. It's going to be running in the background, regardless of kind of what you're working with. So actually probably would help if I changed to the right place. Sorry about that. I was actually getting ready to do there they are. Yeah, I was waiting on those documents to be imported into the wrong place. So first step is the recognition, and that basically says that we're going through the initial stage, and that's where the OCR happens. That's where the initial identification of all the information occurs. And once we have done that process and are ready for either direct export or human validation, it would come into a queue like this. Normally, the way I set this up, or obviously in a live environment, the way this would be set up is that anything that was recognized 100% confident by the system would be passed through. And again, we're able to get to that 100% by saying we found, in this case, we found an invoice. We were able to match the vendor. So we matched the vendor from the recognition of the vendor file. This one's coming up for question because it doesn't seem to like that purchase order number because this particular invoice doesn't have one. So what I can do is look at a PO, and it looks like maybe these are created after the fact, which happens in some cases. So I'm going to associate that purchase order, and now that error is going to go away. Had that purchase order number matched, which you'll see on the next few that come through here, had the purchase order number matched, that would have been exported automatically out of the system. Again, in this case, it's telling me that it has a low confidence in the OCR. By pointing and clicking, I'm going to increase the confidence of that, and at this point then I can submit this invoice. So again, what would normally happen is I could tell you that 90% or more of these invoices would go through automatically, and only those that needed any human validation would be stopped. And so what I'm doing here is just stopping to show you how a couple of these exceptions are going to work. So again, in this case, I'm not sure why that failed, maybe a low confidence in SDR. One of the things you do have the capability of doing is increasing or decreasing the confidence based on your initial tests of the system. So if you find that for some reason we're getting errors, in this case it looks like it's a pretty poor quality image. A lot of times for demos, that's what we're working with, and in the real world that's what you're working with. So you can see a lot of different situations, but obviously having a clean image is the best way you can start from here. While we're here, I mean, again, we know we're talking about advanced capture, but this is, I think, is something very important for advanced capture. One of the ways we're able to actually improve the accuracy is by doing the PO lookup. So all of these items have already been matched. So I can do the PO lookup. I can validate that we're working with the right PO number. And I can also come to each of these line items and determine whether or not they match what we're looking for. So just picking one of those lines and saying, yes, that matches that one. That one has been validated, and change to true, same thing there. So all I would do is need to validate each one of those. Again, probably OCR failures, or it could be something like a line item mismatch. A lot of times you're going to have different item numbers that don't match, or using different character schemes, whatever it may be. So that's basically all that needs to be done for those that are problematic for any reason. So I know there's probably a lot of questions, and we have one more thing that we wanted to show you before we open it up for questions. So you're participating in the first time that we've actually done this in a live environment, and it was my idea. So if it works, it was Glenn's idea. So what we ask a couple of folks to do, which we normally don't do, is we ask some folks to send in some sample invoices for processing. And I promised Glenn I wouldn't look at them before we drop them into the system to show you how well it can work if it's designed properly. So what I need to do is I need to, because I don't have these set up so basically what I'm doing is I'm working in working in my live environment and my demo environment at the same time, so I need to put these in a specific spot. So what I'm going to do is just create a folder for these. And we're not going to worry about spelling today. And we're going to grab 4 invoices. Over there. Okay, so now have the invoices somewhere that's accessible to my demonstration environment. So now, let's do this. One last step, and I again apologize for the gyrations. This is normally what would be set up with a automated polling environment, but since we're doing this in a live environment, I didn't want to have any security concerns with documents coming in the system. Okay. So we have those 5 invoices that were attached. They are going through recognition. What I showed you the first time was a profile that was a specific profile that was designed for a customer. We always look at the frequency of occurrences of word patterns and phrases, which we find based in the industry, and also a lot of it depends on the methodology of integration with the ERP system. So typically what we see is with a very defined system, we get a little bit faster processing throughput. Even without that, having never seen these invoices before at all, we were able to get through them in a matter of 20 seconds or less, which is about what we're looking for. Now, I will say that one of the things I didn't want to do was to take the time to set up a vendor integration because, again, since I've never seen these invoices before, one of the first things we always look for is the vendor. We do a direct lookup into your ERP system for the vendor information, and that's where we would get that from, and we don't have that in this case. And that improves the recognition a lot. So even without that, we were able to get the invoice number, the invoice date, PO number, line items. Looks like they came through okay. In fact, they did. They came through pretty well. We have a couple line items here where, in this case, you'll notice as I mentioned this before, as I click into an area of the user interface, it always gives me that visual information as to where it found what it's looking for. So let me explain what's going on here. Basically, the system is designed to look for tables of information. So in this case, the table of information would be the specific line item detail that we're extracting. And now we got to a point where it kind of looks like line item detail, but it's really not. So all I would effectively do would be to delete those rows that don't fit into the protocol and train the document and submit the document. And the next time that comes through, the system should understand that that's not what we're looking to do. So we'll try another one here. Again, it looks like we did a great job. We got characters and numbers. We got the invoice date, the invoice number. For some reason, we have an extra character that appeared. It's hard to tell. First generation, second generation copy, not really sure. The OCR results usually are very high. So that appears to be the only thing that was an error there. The system is asking us to take a look at the total, and it looks like the reason is that it found some different context on the page as to what actually is the total. So we have a total due here, and we have a settlement amount here. Not sure which one of those to use. So again, basically, we're going to eliminate that. From there, we're going to click in the area we want to actually use as that total, and same type of thing. So whatever we need to do to basically clean that up, it looks like these line items probably don't match from a table perspective, and submit. Will, again, next time we see that, we shouldn't have to do those same. The only thing that maybe would be that each where we got 2 E's and the A. So we're up at 30 minutes, and Glenn, I'm going to ask you to take it back, and again, hopefully we do have some questions about what we just did.
Great. Thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate that. All right, so let's do this. Let's just finish up this part, and then we'll jump right into Q&A. And if some of you are interested in Rick going back into the demo software, kind of digging some of the things he was doing, we're glad to do that. But just to wrap up real quick, and just a little bit about ourselves. Informa, we're a solutions company. We help organizations do more with less. We feel like we have some great products and technology. I think as you get to talk with us more and get to know us better, you'll agree. We have integration skills with a diverse range of systems. Just about any kind of back-end system you've got, we probably have already integrated with it. We are a U.S.-based management and staff. And what do we do? Of course, advanced capture solutions, as we're talking about today, process automation, workflow automation, enterprise content management, retention management for documents and email. We do digital mailroom technology solutions. We integrate just about any kind of hardware you can imagine. A reporting dashboard is anything you could imagine wanting to report. We do write-back systems and service and systems integration and consulting. So that's about it. So let's come to the questions. We talked about advanced capture, and I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody, but I'm going to ask you, and if you would please, until you have a question, if you would please keep your phone muted. Otherwise, some folks may forget and have a background conversation that takes over our question period. But I've unmuted everyone, so who's going to start? Who has the first question for today?
That's the first question. It's Janet. On the match, on the reconciliation of the invoice, what happens when I short pay an invoice? Do you process what matches, and then the short pay would be kicked out for more investigation? How do you process something like that through your system?
This is Rick. I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing you. It sounds like you may be on a speakerphone. If you maybe a little bit closer, but I only got a little bit of what you said.
Okay. Here's the question. Okay. On the reconciliation, I guess the capture piece that you showed the first time, that's so great when everything matches. But a lot of times I short pay an invoice because I have questions of why I'm being billed for this. So when it goes through that process, do you match what matches and push it through for payment, and then the ones that don't match, what happened to them? Do they come out on a log saying more investigation is required? How do you handle when I short pay an invoice? It's not going to match. So how do you handle something like that?
Okay, so great question. So that there's different ways to handle it based on what you want to do. So I always try to preach that our Advanced Capture Center, it really is a capture tool, and that's what we're looking for, to capture that information as correctly as possible. So a couple things are going to happen if we do have access to your purchase order tables, your database, as well as your receivers, or the packing list information that would have been approved. We can do the OCR first and then go do that lookup and compare. And that's one of the things I showed where we were doing that line item comparison. So that's an example of how we can improve the recognition. But now that we have it on the screen, the question is, what are we going to do with this? Because either it doesn't match one of those documents, and if you're going to short pay, maybe that's been entered already because your receiving document indicated that it was short. So when the receiver was entered, that would have been indicated as short. Those two wouldn't match. It's going to show up with one of those errors that I showed, and you decide what you're going to do at that point in time. So when you're done there, whatever you submit is going to go into your back-end system and start the processing. Now, with that, there are maybe other transactions that need to occur, which we can post as part of the vouchers, journal entries, whatever we need to post to make sure that we're doing this right, or that we're reflecting the true status of the PO, a blanket PO, whatever it may be. So some of that may happen on the back end, or you may choose to just take the input of what we get from a capture perspective and push that through and let your back end system handle it. So it really depends on where you want to handle it. I think it makes the most sense to me to handle it when you're putting the information in the first time. So kind of the first scenario. Does that help?
A little bit.
Well,
I have a question. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, what I did not see is you show the capability of capturing an invoice image into a repository site. But what I did not see was an interface, how is an invoice getting from your system to an ERP system like the one I'm using as a Microsoft AX.
Okay. So there is really nothing. I mean, there are configuration screens that I could show you of how that's going to work. But in terms of how that works, when we get through with the capture job, which is, getting the OCR information, matching it, the POs and the receivers, and deciding what it is that we're ready now to send out for that transaction, we create an export file, or we communicate using an API or a web service to whatever back-end ERP system you have and or whatever workflow system. Because in a lot of cases, the invoices that are coming out need to not only go into an invoice repository for archive, but some of those invoices that don't match, or they're not PO-based or whatever it may be, based on the amount, they need some workflow approval. So we can also feed the workflow system, and then the workflow system can feed the ERP system. So there's really not much of a visual to see there. It's more of that plumbing concept of we're going to extract the data, push it to the right staging point, and push it to the right point for the transaction to occur.
Good question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking about your system has to be earlier you were showing how to look up a PO number and PO lines, and that gave me an impression that your system must be interfacing back and forth between the ERP system that we store our financial data, accounting data in it, including the invoice AP subledger.
Yes, that's correct.
So it's a live interface? Is it a live interface? It's not some sort of interfacing program that runs overnight or by week? Or...
Well, I mean, I can tell you from our end, we're able to be as live as your system is capable of being. I mean, in some cases, we actually see folks that are using old mainframe kind of, or mid-tier AS400s or System 36s that still require an overnight push. That is the absolute last thing that we'd like to do. What we prefer would be a real-time interface that allows us to have a direct database inquiry. It's going to be a read-only process where we look up a PO number to get the PO lines back, look up receiving document based on a PO number that's associated with it, get those lines back, process those, and then in terms of pushing it back out, we're going to push it out via whatever method that system offers. Again, most favorably would be a web service where we can just stream the data in with the right credentials, but we can also do other forms of APIs that require programming or even database staging tables. So we're pretty much flexible and open to whatever the backend system allows us to do.
We have a text question.
Sorry.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
What are the ERP system out there that you guys have successfully employ your software interfacing with those ERP systems?
If I understand it, let me repeat the question.
Excuse me.
What
are the ERP systems that you have successfully interfacing so far?
Everything from every
just about anyone you can imagine. No.
Yeah, whatever flavor that Oracle owns, native Oracle, JD, PeopleSoft, Microsoft, Great Plains, AX, Dynamics 365, Sage, Lawson. I mean, just a whole host across the vertical and horizontal industries we see. A lot of specialty stuff. We work with a lot of government contractors and folks that tend to gravitate in one direction versus our manufacturing customers who gravitate towards the J.D. Edwards kind of stuff. So we pretty much are able to touch it all as long as it has a secure method for interface, which pretty much today everybody has.
I think we had another question coming in at the same time, and then after that, we'll turn to some of these that are sent in via text. Ma'am, I think you had a question?
Yeah, I just had a semi-related question to the interface on getting the information out of this system and into an ERP. The demonstration showed obviously the PO, but for expense-related items where there would not necessarily be a PO, would you also have fields configurable for our general ledger coding in order to interface with our ERP to send it for payment?
Yes, and we actually have one step. I mean, we have one step better. What we planned this presentation around today was the advanced capture portion. So Glenn and I just decided that we would focus on one topic because a lot of times we try to do the whole thing of accounts payable end to end in 30 minutes, and it's tough. So we have a solution for that workflow where the transaction is captured from the invoice. We realize that it's an expense invoice. We kick off a workflow. We evaluate the department that it was sent to, or whatever we can to figure out where the workflow starts. If we don't know where the workflow starts, we can send it directly to accounting. From there, the GL coding can happen at any point during the workflow once all the approvals are done, and there's escalating approvals based on dollar amounts and expense categories. And all those things you would expect can be done in a completely automated fashion and then posted to the ERP system. Or we can work with other systems. We work both with content management providers that have workflow, some folks that compete in our same space, and we also work with other ERP systems and CRM systems that have workflow built in. So very flexible on the workflow path.
So this would be image repository, not necessarily workflow and image repository?
No, workflow and image repository. We have both.
Okay. Thank you.
And they work together. I mean, they work hand in hand together.
And James Carroll, I know you had a question. You asked, how does advanced capture work if the invoice does not require a purchase order? It's similar to what Rick just said about the expenses, in that the system can actually look for a PO match if it doesn't see it, or if there's something on the form in the related database that would tell us that this is a non-PO invoice, then it can kick off the approval workflow that would follow whatever requirements you have for your approval workflows, whatever rules. And it can be variable rules, as we had mentioned earlier, based upon the type of product being purchased, the department, or different things like that. Rick, anything you would add to James's question?
I mean, I think we pretty much summed it up between what I said and what you just said.
Okay. And then, Tracy, you asked, what are the average implementation costs and monthly subscription fees? Well, let me tell you, we offer the solution. That's a good time to let you know. We offer the solution both either in the cloud, it can be Amazon or AWS, it can be Azure or AWS, or we can offer it as a on-premise implementation. We can put it into your cloud if you already have an Azure or AWS environment or some other kind of virtual private cloud or something like that. And the pricing is variable. We can break it out into different components. We find that some people are doing a very low volume of invoices, and they're like, well, I don't need these things, I just need these things. And so we can pare it down so it can be a very minimal thing that fits their budget and their requirements. And then we have folks with hundreds of thousands of invoices every year, with very complicated systems, actually, multiple ERP systems, and we can manage everything in between that. So, Tracy, it'd be really something where we could, in fact, this is probably a good time to mention this as well. Our goal for this, if any of you find what we're talking about interesting, we would love to set up a time to be able to put together a custom demonstration or even just talk about your requirements. And we're glad to put together a budgetary proposal for you. It takes just not too much of a conversation for us to be able to do that, to understand your volume, your specific parameters, your needs, whatever kind of workflows you would have. And we could put together and say, here's the software to do this, and here's a range of hours to implement the system. So very quickly we could help any of you have a good budgetary proposal that would be something you could then take forward and decide what you'd like to do. We've got a few more questions here. Let me, some of these that were put in earlier. I know Thomas Lee had asked, thanks for the demo. You have Shan's. We're just down south of you a little bit, running PeopleSoft and external EDI web services. And we've worked a lot with PeopleSoft. But Rick, here's the question. Have we ever working with PeopleSoft, and do you have examples of integration with the regular voucher page in PeopleSoft? And the quick answer is yes. Rick, you got any more details for Thomas?
I don't. I mean, I'm sure we could arrange a demo to show you that. I would need to know which version you have of PeopleSoft, but beyond that, we do have multiple customers that are using our integration with this entire suite of software with PeopleSoft in different environments. So
yeah, Thomas. Yeah. Thomas, you'd be glad to know we actually have, because you're in Florida, we have Florida references that are using PeopleSoft in very large volumes that we're glad, as we kind of dig into things, we're glad that the right time shared that with you as well. And let's see, after Thomas, I think we had another question here from Nicole. Do you offer a purchase order system or just a capturing tool? We do offer e-forms where you can actually submit a purchase request, and it can be, with a single sign-on so it knows who the person is, so it knows what, there may be a limitation of products based upon the person, so we can build that. And then each, depending on who they are and what they're requesting, there may be a variable workflow. So we do offer that. Anything else you'd offer, Rick, on that? Is that cover that?
Yeah. So it just depends on what the approach is that you're looking for, but certainly we could help with an e-forms based.
Yeah.
It pretty much solves the problem. We're able to basically create the purchase requisition, run it through the approval process, and then store that, and we would integrate with that system much the same way we would from the creating a voucher in the system.
And just so you guys know, I play an engineer on demos, but Rick's actually an engineer, so that's why I keep referring to him. Laura Osman asked, does your system handle employee expenses and or reimbursements via American Express? Yes, and we didn't really focus on employee expenses today, but we actually have a complete expense demo that we can show you and kind of dig into that. We'd love to have a chance to do that. Yelena, it's good to see you again. It's great to meet you last week. You're using Ariba for the workflow. Can captured invoices be interfaced with Ariba? And I believe that answer, Rick, we talked about that last week. That would be yes, we can do that, correct? And Dennis, I believe your question is who to contact for a personal demo. Well, that would be me, and then Rick and I would be the ones who would be putting together a demo. And yes, we have a lot of folks who are doing Microsoft Dynamics AX. In fact, we're working with one guy right now. We're working with this AX, and he's actually in the process of, as we're implementing for him, he's migrating from Microsoft AX to D365. So we're familiar with the complete range of Microsoft solutions. We are a Microsoft Gold partner, and our solutions are built on the Microsoft platform. So very familiar with Microsoft AX, and glad to dig into that. Lori asked, will this work with multiple systems? You have Epicor and also Sage? Yes. And we can basically, if you think about logically, why would something need to go to Epicor and why would something need to be going to Sage? We can build rules that can detect that, and then the same way you would make a logical decision, the software can make that decision. And of course, it could go to both based upon another parameter. So hopefully that answers your question. And Annalise, you asked, have we ever worked with OnBase, Highland? We've actually replaced Highland several times, but we can work with OnBase's workflow. That's something Rick mentioned earlier. We work with folks that already have existing digital systems, that may some ECM, Enterprise Content Management Systems. They have workflows, and so we can integrate with those systems upon request. Thomas gave us the PeopleSoft version. Rick, I don't know if you can see those numbers. I'll let you look in the chat. And while you're looking at that, Stephanie, I think you said you prefer not to interact with AS400. Well, I think no one would prefer to have an AS400, but it is something we're able to do, yes. In fact, we have worked with AS400s, and, I think some of our engineers have some very fun anecdotal stories to tell, but probably not fit for a mixed company like this. But, no, definitely, we have worked with it. We're glad to. And you mentioned, can vendors, Dennis, you had asked, can vendors submit their invoices directly to Informa? We sell the software solution. We give you the solution so that you're able to manage it. we actually don't do this as an outsourced service. We're a technology provider. So there are some folks that say they don't want to, I don't want the headache. I want somebody else to do this for me. We're not the partner for you. Other people say, I need to manage this. I need to be in control of my process. I need to control my security. I want technology that can make me powerful and automated. We're your partner. That's what we do. We sell the technology solutions. We don't do a service where we're receiving it. We give you the technology. So, for example, if they're emailing it to you, the system's going to handle it, but it'll be either in your cloud, on your on-premise, or in a cloud that you purchase from us, that you're purchasing from us. And then the system's going to manage, as Rick mentioned. In the demo he first showed you, 90% of those invoices went through, and you're only dealing with exceptions. So that's the way it'll be. Julie, I think you had, either way. I'm not sure what that question was, so maybe if you want to elaborate?
No, you answered the question that you can do SaaS or on-prem.
Yes, exactly. We've had a few folks do kind of a hybrid there. I've just run out of all the typed questions. I always like to get those when people are typed. So anybody else have any other questions you want to speak up, or feel free to type in a question.
Hi, this is Helena. Sorry, I did not have a chance to say thank you for answering my question. I appreciate it. But another question I have is, do you work with Informa ERP system?
We do. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
In fact, all the various flavors. Which flavor of Informa do you have?
We have Cloud Suite.
Cloud Suite, yeah. We could definitely work with that. There's a lot of, and of course, Informa has bought a lot of solutions, so now they get called Informa as well. So we've, and okay. Julie asked, is it license per seat for SaaS? It depends on which module you get, but for the most of what we're doing, and it's going to be licensed up to a point, and then it'll turn into an enterprise license where it would allow you to grow unlimited. So you'd be able to have an unlimited use for the number of users you would like to be able to use. The advanced capture itself is on an annual page volume, and you're able to, by the number of pages you need to use in the year, it resets annually. So in a perpetual license where you own that volume, and of course your software support gets you all the upgrades, and of course you can add to that volume as you grow. And what is the minimum before enterprise? I think you would be looking at for our basic workflow system for document management, you'd be looking at 50 users, and then it'd move into the enterprise. And if you're looking at the advanced capture, again, it's page volume, but you can have as many, it's the exception handling, and of course people that are actually going in and setting a system up. You're not going to need many people to set it up, but it's not limited. But as far as the exception handling, again, there's no limit here. The pricing is based just upon that annual page volume, and then you could have people in various locations or as many people in one location. However you need to set that up, you'd be able to configure that. And so if you're looking at 50 or less, we have a 25 to 50 licensing. And so, Julie, what we could do is we could talk offline. We could get some of your parameters looking for what you're looking for. And very quickly, Julie, we'd be able to get you a ballpark price. We give you a firm price on the software, and then give you, just from a quick conversation, we give you an estimate to be between this many hours and this many hours to implement and set up the system for you. So, and then, of course, for deeper conversation, we give a firm not to exceed price. In other words, we give you an SOW that says we're going to do these 50 things, and we guarantee it will not exceed this many hours, and so that way you have a cost containment. We're not one of those companies that's always going to try to sneak in and get you a little more. We give you a not to exceed price. So if it comes out to be more, it's on us. You've got a cost control. So Julie, what I'll do is I'll reach out to you afterwards, and we'll set up a conversation, and we'll put together a ballpark price for you.
So good afternoon, it's Althea. First of all, thank you for the webinar. I'm just interested in trying to find out if I need to have a little bit more information, not necessarily to the demo phase as yet, but just kind of going through some of the other options that you didn't get a chance to cover with us today, so I can read and discuss further with my management team here. That's the first question. The other question, I think you mentioned about implementation costs, but we're in the process of budgeting right now. Is it possible to give just a very, a ballpark figure of what it would cost for implementation and then for maintenance, just so that I can compare with what I currently have available, more so for the repository feature than the workflow feature at this time?
Althea, it's hard to say because there's different modules and parts. But I'll tell you what, I guarantee you, maybe even within 5 minutes. But if you can give me some time, either this afternoon or tomorrow, for like a 10 or maybe 5 minutes, but no more than 15-minute call, I can give you those figures, and it'll be something that has meaning. I could tell you it's X amount today, and then you tell me, oh, but I wanted this, or I could give you a higher number, and you can say, well, I didn't need that. So I always hesitate to do that. I'm very glad to get pricing, but I'd rather make sure I understand your specific. And so I'll see if it's okay. I'll give you a call when we hang up here, and I may be able to give you something very quickly, or at least kind of begin giving you the ideas. And Dennis, I'll give you a call as well because I know you said you'd like that. And it's always good to like I said, we talk to some folks. They have hundreds of thousands of invoices. That's going to be more of a system to handle them. I have people that actually have just a very few thousand each year, and we have a solution for those as well. So you can imagine, though, the pricing to accommodate each of those are very different. So if I guess you're wrong, I'm either going to give you a dream that it's going to be cheaper than it can be, or I'm going to blow you away with a price that's not real, because when I understood what you had, you'd have a price you'd like a lot better. So I'll reach out. I'll see you, and Dennis, I'll reach out to both of you after this call. Rich had to jump off. He had another meeting scheduled at the top of the hour. But I'm glad to answer any other questions and stay on for as long as you guys would like to answer anything that you'd like to know about this.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Sorry. I'd ask if we could have any additional information outside of what you presented. Mm-hmm.
Well, we have a lot of information as far as related to AP processing, straight through processing. I actually have a document, 6 steps to straight through processing. Those are some of the things I can send you. So I'd be glad to send that information to you. The thing about it is we have hundreds of customers we do this for, and I guarantee you there's not 2 of them that do it exactly the same. So there's always more to say, and so sometimes we try to give a good 20,000-foot view in our documents, and someone says, I wish you did this. And, well, yeah, we do that. We didn't have it. Well, yeah, I could have a 50-page document to say everything we do, but so I can send you that information. But if you're looking for something that you don't see mentioned, please let me know, because it's very likely that we do that. It's just we try to make our documents simple, easy for people to see, kind of get the quick basic, and then they can tell us what else they're looking for, or what exceptions, what's unique about their circumstance. Does that make sense, Gloria? And I'll send that information. I'll email you some additional information, and you can just tell me what you're missing and anything else. There was someone else that had a question.
Hi, this is Annalise, and I was interested in knowing if you could forward us the deck of the presentation that you just gave, because my Director of Treasury would like to review it. And another question I have is, what percentage of your business is for the AP automation process? Because I know you do a lot of other OCR.
Yes. Well, what we do is we manage capture, workflow automation, and content management. And so in that tool set is the AP automation. It's also expense management. It's also HR file management and HR workflows. We do even payment processing, because again it's capture, workflow, storage. We do digital mailroom, because again it's that capture. So we do capture, process automation, and storage, and we do it for a wide variety. The percentage that we have of accounts payable, I wish I knew that percentage. There's so many people we actually do both. I can tell you how many companies I've had that have started out with accounts payable and said, wait a minute, you mean it's only this much more and I've got HR? Yeah. You want to throw that in? And they do, because you've already got the base system. And sometimes it's just we teach them how to build their own workflows. There's actually no additional cost to them except them to take the time to build it out to do this different things. So I can't tell you a percentage, but I can tell you we have hundreds of AP automation customers.
Okay, good to know. I look forward to the deck. Thank you.
Certainly. And anybody else that's interested in the deck, please let me know. You can, in fact, if you just shoot me an email, I can just hit a reply. I will be uploading the deck, and we've recorded today's webinar as well. And if you're interested in listening to the recording, it'll take me a few minutes to convert the web meeting to an MP4 file, and then I actually upload it to my Microsoft OneDrive. And so instead of sending you a gigantic file through your email, I'll actually just send you a link, and you can download the PowerPoint of the. So if you're interested in those, if you will just send me an email, that way I can hit reply and send it back to you. But any other questions? I know we're already at the top of the hour, but I'm glad to stay if there's a few more questions. Anything else?
Yes, one more question. In terms of retention, how long, how many years in terms of the content management can be saved on the system?
As long as you want. Of course, the volume is mattered by how much you're bringing in, and then your retention or destruction policies. But if you buy our system on premise, how big a servers do you have? What are your storage drives? If you put it in the cloud, your price is going to, you're going to have a price for a certain amount of volume, and if you get more volume, your cloud price a little bit more, unless it's in your cloud. But I mean, if it's in your cloud, you're going to be paying Amazon or Microsoft a little bit more all on your own. But there's no limit to the amount of time you can store. The system is capable of doing retention management. For example, I can say I need to keep an invoice 7 years from the invoice date. It'll calculate that, and it'll tell you which documents are ready to go. You may have other documents that are different. But we have folks that have very strict retention policies. I have one federal government agency that when we first were implementing, we said, now what's your retention policy? Oh, forever. And they meant it. They have quite a lot of documents, but we have people storing literally hundreds of millions of documents in the system.
Okay.
So it's just, but again, if it's a cloud, you're paying for volume. If it's on premise, it's just add another storage drive.
Right.
Did that answer? Any other questions? All right. Well, if you're like me, you probably think of your best question about 5 minutes after the meeting's over. That's when I get my best questions. So if you think of any questions, I think you should all have my email address and my phone number. So please don't hesitate to call me or email me with any questions. We'll be reaching out to you as well. If this is something you're actively exploring, we'd very much like to put together a custom presentation and maybe take some of your documents through the system, talk about how this system could help you, give you some budgetary pricing, everything you need to do to both have a good cost estimate, time to implement estimate, but a good basis of comparison as well. So tell us how I can help it. And Edie, I see that you also asked for the PowerPoint. I'll be sending that to you as well. All right, guys. If there are no more questions, thank you again so much for joining us. Hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.